Un mundo tan desafiante, nuestro reto es ser la luz, dar amor día con día.
Ven y seamos esperanza, testimonio de valores, de unidad y de alegría.
Le damos la palabra a Nicki y Sila, creadores del curso para matrimonios Alfa, fundadores de la organización Relationship Central, que agrupa los cursos de Marriage Course, the Marriage Preparation Course, the Parenting Children Course, and the Parenting Teenagers Course.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Nicki and I are so happy to be here in Mexico. We've come from England last night. And we are particularly happy to be in Mexico again. This is our second visit. And we are particularly happy to be amongst so many people who we know are champions for marriage and family. So thank you for inviting us and welcoming us.
The title that we have been given to speak on today is Conflict and Suffering in Marriage, an Opportunity to Grow. It made us think a lot. If we were to ask the question, how should we live? St. Paul has a very clear answer to that. In Galatians chapter 5, he writes this: the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. And then just a few verses later, he says the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. And then a few verses later, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are the things that we are talking about, that marriage and family are to be about. Now, here in Mexico, we know you have many vines, many vineyards. We know that you produce delicious wine. In England, we have far fewer vineyards. But our daughter and son-in-law have a vineyard on the south coast of England, and they make sparkling wine. We have a photograph of one of their vines that will come up. Now, you know this. The purpose of a vine is to bear fruit. There are their vines. The harvest is just about to start in England, harvesting the fruit. And recently, I heard our daughter talking about the importance of the soil for the vines, the ground that the vines grow out of. And she said it's very important that for the vines, the soil is thin. It's not too rich, because it is important that the vines have to fight for water and nutrition. And that's a good thing, because it is when vines are under stress, they produce more fruit. And they produce more fruit because they are desperate to reproduce themselves. God has created us to bear fruit. Jesus, in John 15, said to his disciples and to us, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Fruit is living lives of love, growing the fruit of the Spirit, not least in marriage. Marriage presents the greatest opportunity to build the most intimate of relationships by learning to love this person that we're married to. But it also presents us with the greatest challenge to keep loving when things are difficult, as they will be at times, because marriage will always involve conflict and suffering. But might it just be that God has designed it to use the stress of conflict and suffering as a way of making us more fruitful, just like the vines, to cause us to grow in love?
And conflict in marriage can either pull us apart or it can help us to grow. Conflict is inevitable because we are different. We have differences. And in a marriage, the two people will have differences. We have different personalities, different preferences, different ideas, different temperaments, different likes and dislikes. And every one of us here who is married will have felt at times that our spouse is being totally irrational and utterly unreasonable. We have a choice. We can either insist on our own way, we can bully our partner, we can threaten them, we can try to manipulate them, we can go into a sulk, or get into a power struggle. Now, I just want to be very personal here and tell you that when Nicki and I first got married, we've been married now 46 years, but when we first got married, I would go into a sulk at regular intervals. And particularly whenever Nicki wanted to do something different to what I wanted. And there were plenty of things, I can assure you. He likes to get to the airport at the last possible minute, whereas I like to get to the airport with lots of time in hand. He liked to save money, if he possibly could, whereas if we had some money, I liked to spend it. I could tell you many more differences. But after the first year of marriage with, I'm sorry to admit, a lot of sulking and then possibly exploding as well, I eventually realized I had to try to understand Nicki's perspective as much as he had to try and understand mine. And that involved us learning to listen to each other, which listening, as you know, is always costly. And for some of us, I am one of these, where listening doesn't come naturally. It's extremely challenging. Stephen Covey said, I'm sure you know this, seek first to understand and then to be understood. You know, it would be so much easier if our husband or wife thought and reacted the same way as we do, if they had the same needs as we have. Then there would be no conflict. But marriage is not meant to be easy. It's meant to make us more fruitful. And it's our differences that enable us to grow in understanding and empathy if we choose to, and to grow in love for one another.
And just as conflict is inevitable in marriage, so too is suffering. And that will be the personal experience of, I think, every married couple here, whether that is through health, whether it's through finances or bereavement, or infertility or unemployment or wider family issues. We can't avoid suffering. Suffering, of course, can cause us to grow in our relationship with God as we reach out to Him in times of need. But it is also an opportunity to grow in love as we seek to support and serve our spouse rather than just being concerned about ourselves. I want to tell you about some great friends who have been friends of ours for 50 years. They're called Anthony and Carrie. I was at university with Anthony. We came to faith at the same time. 2 years ago, Carrie was diagnosed with motor neurone disease. And it's been agonizing to watch the rapid decline in her ability to move or to function normally, and there was nothing that the doctors can do. We have prayed with them, we've prayed for them. We've shed many tears. But I have to tell you this, watching Anthony take care of Carrie has been one of the most inspiring things we have ever seen. He has had to learn how to use a hoist so that he can lift her, had to learn how to turn her over in bed because she can't turn herself, had to learn how to use a feeding tube. And seeing his love and care for his wife and continuing to find joy and laughter amongst the tears, when we've been with them, we feel like we've been in the presence of Jesus. Suffering gives us an opportunity to grow in love like nothing else.
Nicki and I have recently moved house, and where we now live, there is a 400-year-old oak tree, and it's huge, and it dominates the garden and is very close to the house. I hope, yes, you can see. Now, that is the house that we have renovated and restored.
Not in that photograph.
No,
Since then,
this is...
we have been renovating.
And when you can first see, when we first visited this place and saw this tree, we immediately noticed the tree, and it felt very prophetic for us and very important. And then, about a year later, in January 2020, we were at a conference, the Alpha USA conference in Phoenix, Arizona, and we were about to speak about the marriage course. And our then assistant, Janice, said to us, can I pray for you before you talk? And she had never been to this place, to our new home. She had never seen the oak tree, and she didn't know that the oak tree existed. And then she prayed for us, and we asked her afterwards to write the prayer down because it was so profound. And Nicki's going to read what she wrote.
Hi, Nicki and Sila. The image I had while praying for you was a picture of this giant oak tree, magnificent, majestic, old, and withered with age, every wrinkle reflected on its trunk and branches. I don't think she was talking about our own wrinkles at that moment, as far as I know. She wrote, in a society and time where people are caught up in lies, believing that the quick fix is the best thing, and that when things are broken, throw it away and buy a new one, where things have to be Instagram perfect, I feel the marriage course is fighting those lies. Just like the beauty of the old, majestic oak tree that has weathered through many storms and trials and tribulations, a marriage is beautiful when it bears the scars of hardships endured, of battles fought, of just standing there, working on something even when it's breaking. Jesus is beautiful because of the scars he bore for us. Marriage is beautiful in this same way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening.
En un mundo tan desafiante, nuestro reto es ser la luz, dar amor día con día.
Ven y seamos esperanza, testimonio